Yes, mate. Yes.
Yes, it is. We're back.
We are back, everyone, and
We're
excited. It is a
Back
beautiful
once
day after we've had a long weekend.
It's been a good weekend.
Yeah, it has actually. We both took the Monday off, so we've had from Friday off and then back to work tomorrow.
Can't you wait, man?
Can he wait? Well, guys, welcome back to episode 2 of Subject to Change.
Lovely. So before we really get into it, sorry, that was Oakley shaking.
Oh, I was going to say, I've had a lot of new changes since. I've got my new phone case with my phone popper. This is I don't know if anyone else has one of these, but I'm sure they do. But a phone popper, it really helps because like when you want to hold your phone, you ever have it like you drop your phone on your face in the middle of the night, or like when you're in bed, and do you not? Yeah, exactly. And so you're holding it then, and you don't drop it because you don't drop it. It's like anyway, it's only like a couple of bucks, but it actually is really helpful. When you want to take a selfie as well, you don't have to worry about it dropping, and it's just like hold like this. But yeah, that's what's changed. So.
You finished?
Yeah, no, I'm done now. Yeah, that's good. I got that.
Oh, goodness. Right, so in the first episode, we talked about the fact that Dan never really listens, but he has a really, really good story.
Oh, that's funny.
He has a really, really funny story that that he wants to share.
I do. Oh, I can't believe I actually forgot to bring this up.
Yeah, it's funny.
So I was on a date with someone a couple of months ago, or like within the last couple of months, and I saw them the next day. I hope they don't figure out it's them, because they're going to be like, fucking hell, that makes so much sense now from your reaction. And I was like, sometimes when people speak, I don't really listen to what they're saying. It's an accident anyway. We're sitting on the beach and we're chatting, and she's talking to me, and I hadn't realised I hadn't been listening, but then she's like, also, welcome, Oakley. And I hadn't realised I hadn't realised I hadn't been listening. And she gets to the end of it, she's like, so what do you think? And there's like common sentences that I always bring up, like, oh yeah, no, completely understand, or oh yeah, no, agree. And she went, what? You agree that it's alright to fuck your cousin? Oh mate, what the fuck? And I just froze, and I went, I don't know how to get out of this, because either A, I agree with it, or B, I wasn't listening. So I'm like, oh, no, as in I understand why you would think it's wrong, because it is wrong. Yeah, no, that. And she went, oh yeah, I thought I was going to say that's really weird.
Oh, that is
but yeah,
the first time you told me that, I actually creased up so much.
Hopefully she doesn't know that I'm talking about her and comes back to me and goes, oh, I remember that.
She's definitely going to know.
I'm really sorry.
I can't imagine you've been on many dates with girls whose cousins were having sex with each other.
No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't having sex with her cousin.
No.
It was a story about
her cousins are having sex with each other.
I don't know who it was.
That'd
actually.
be weird
I wasn't listening to the story anyway.
You were going on dates with all the was just a thing.
I wasn't listening.
You should double check that.
I can't bring it up again.
Yeah, that was funny. And then I just wanted to bring up something from the last podcast.
What's this?
So Dan obviously went on a massive little rant about New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
And how he hates the fact that people decide to do this dry January thing.
Just to say as well, we can finally be friends with Alex again in 6 days. I cannot wait.
Welcome back, Alex.
Welcome back, Alex.
But yeah, he was just obviously giving off about the fact that the people decide to not drink in the month of January, and he's like, it's so pointless. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? So, a few days after, on social media,
I hope you're bringing this up.
There is an influencer on social media. He will or she will be remain nameless, and this person is also doing dry January, and I know how much Dan froth is over this influencer. Froth is over.
I hate you so much.
So I realised that he's also or she's also doing dry January.
You're a big shit.
And then I screenshot it and sent it to Dan, knowing that he's completely against this.
Or she.
Knowing that you are completely against it.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
And completely against the dry January New Year's resolution thing. Screenshot it, send it to him on WhatsApp. And I was like, look at this. This person is also doing dry January. I was like, what do you think of that? And Dan, with the hypocrisy, if I've ever seen one, replies, I've got an open mind. And I'm like, what? Or is your actual life?
No.
You literally go on the podcast. No. And so many people listen to you go off about New Year's resolutions and the fact that you hate the fact that people do dry Jan. And now this one person has done it. You're like, I'll keep an open mind. I want to hear what the reasons are first.
It wasn't to do with that. It was to do with the mindset behind it. Because like I said, this individual... No, okay, I feel like I'm going to throw myself under the bus here. It was more to do with the mindset of when people do speak about it. It's like the attitude around it. But I think this individual who I have... Anyway, I'm like... I'm gonna hate watching this bit back.
Ridiculous.
But
And he's just trying to make excuses for it.
Anyway, look, at the end of the day, if this individual comes out with some interesting information, I probably will be quite open-minded to it. But,
I'm
look, we're all
sure.
hypocrites in our own way.
But yeah, we just wanted to start the podcast off just to recap a little of that first bit. But yeah, welcome to Subject to Change, episode 2. Thank you very much. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you have chosen to be here with us.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks very much, guys.
We really, 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 really appreciate that.
We've had some great feedback as well.
Yeah.
After we dropped the first episode. I quite like that word now. After we dropped the first episode, having people saying they really found it interesting.
Yeah.
One of our friends actually listened to it twice, which was
awesome.
It's really so nice to have that kind of feedback. Someone actually and how the views we actually did get from it and how much people had listened to it. I was just so surprised. It's such a nice
We've had surprisingly a lot of listens considering it's our first podcast across all 3 of those platforms: SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
It could have been just because of Oakley, but it could have been just because of Oakley. But
yeah, they can't really see the dog on the podcast though.
Fair.
Maybe on YouTube and also YouTube. But so this is episode 2, and I think based on the title of what the podcast is, you probably have a little bit of an inclination as to what this podcast is going to be about.
Yeah.
We're actually recording on the 26th of January.
Yeah.
Which, if you're not living in Australia or from Australia, you may not know what this day is. So today is basically known as Australia Day, but to a lot of people, it's definitely a day of mourning, a day of heartache, a day of just remembering the awful things that happened on this island back in 1788. So we just want to make people who are listening to this just know that we're aware of what the day means to a lot of people, and how much this can actually affect you all, knowing that there's so many people that are still celebrating this day as a day of happiness when it really is the complete opposite.
Yeah. No, 100%. I was saying before that when I first came to Australia, I think a lot of backpackers were like that as well. We weren't taught about Aboriginals or anything like that. And I remember my ex was Australian, and I remember her telling me about it. And I had no idea. I don't know if it's the same as anyone else, but I asked my friends, and obviously we went to the same school. We weren't taught that we settled Australia. We weren't taught loads of different stuff like that. So when I came and I watched this program called You Can't Ask Stuff Like That. You might have seen. I think I've told you about it. It's on ABC. It's a really cool program. You Can't Ask Stuff Like That. And essentially, they bring people on, and they have the public send in these questions, and they bring on like gay people, Aboriginals, priests, people who've attempted suicide, murderers, rapists, and they have these questions just sent in from the public. And the first episode is on Aboriginals, and I watched it. I was like, what the? I had no idea. And watching it was so it's very heavy to listen to, and understanding how they're treated on a day-to-day basis. And I know places we've been to like Darwin and stuff like that, it's very confronting.
It is.
So definitely I think it's important.
Just like as you said, most backpackers when they move here, and you really don't have a clue, because what Australia does portray as to you in the media is just a celebration. Everyone parties, there's loads of events on. So when you get here, you're excused the ignorance somewhat, because you can't if you don't know, you don't know. But I think when you do find out, I think that's when you need to make a decision on what you do with that information. And after that, you know what, it just says a lot about you as a person.
Yeah, 100%.
What you decide. So with that, today's episode, we thought we'll go in with a bit of something that's quite, what would be a good word?
I think with this episode, we've obviously put a bit on our social media over the last day or two, but I think we speak about it. We speak about it quite a lot. I think it's something that should be spoken about a lot more. And mental health, mental wealth, that's essentially one of the big topics we're going to be talking about, because I know that myself and you have experienced it in the past, just like everyone else has been through certain aspects of mental health and how they've dealt with it. And I think that it's important in it's important in general that people should be able to speak about these topics more openly without feeling weak or vulnerable, or like they shouldn't be discussing these things because of some level of bravado that they need to keep up with their friends. And I think I think friendship is massively built on vulnerability. I think outside of all the bullshit, the bands you have with your mates, if you don't ever speak about stuff like this, it's very just surface level. I think that's why we wanted to talk about it. I guess just if anyone can pull anything away from this,
100%.
I think it makes it all worth it. And yeah, and just as a slight disclaimer as well, you know, we aren't this is
healthcare professionals.
Yeah, we aren't professionals. This is purely our opinion coming from experience.
Yeah.
And if anyone does disagree or wants to dispute us, feel free to email those disputes through to Lee Whitworth at hotmail.com.
Please do.
That's WHITWORTH Lee Whitworth at hotmail.com. I'm looking forward to that response.
But yeah, so yeah, as Dan said, we just wanted to touch on it. We're not healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
We're just going to be pretty much just talking about some of the experiences we've had.
Yeah.
And this and that. On our experiences, we're going to talk about why we think a lot of people do suffer from mental health, why we think they may not seek help, and yeah, just going down different avenues of that. And before we start, I kind of did like a bit of research on like some like of the facts about mental health as well, and it's just crazy how much stuff like the suicide rate has risen over the past 20 years. I think there's been about a 35% increase in the suicide rate over the past 20 years, which is like that's ridiculous. It was baffling reading that information, because I feel like over the past 20 years, and especially whenever we've been growing up through this age of social media and how media has just completely just perplexed and just skyrocketed in terms of how much money is being invested in it. When I think with all that being said, with social media, I think whenever we were growing up in school and stuff like that, like mental health wasn't talked about at all.
It definitely wasn't. And I know Mental Health Day is like a thing every year, isn't it? There was like this happened like a couple of months ago. It was like a day, and I was saying when this happened, and this was like one of the things before we started this podcast. I had a thought of is, correct me if I'm wrong. People always talk about if you want to speak about mental health, speak about it. But I'm like, no one I really know really speaks about it, and people.
So sorry, that
was just actually sneezing. He wanted to have one line in it. People always talk about wanting to speak about mental health, but then I don't really hear people talking about it and like actually coming, speaking about the situations they've been through. But when something does happen, which I know a lot of my friends, they're very just quick to bury the situation and they rather deal with it on their own. I know that's something I definitely did do in the past.
Why do you think that is?
I think it probably comes from like social media, magazines. I know growing up, you've got stuff like Men's Health, all these magazines, how men are spoken about being like tough, all this like bravado, keeping our emotions buried down, deal with it. You're the man of the house, you're the hunter, gatherer, all this kind of stuff. And it's like we're taught that we're just there to just be tough individuals.
Yeah, it's like the term man up has just been something that just rolls off people's tongue. And I think, as you say, when you're growing up, back when you're in like the early 90s, I was 92. Just being a man was just something that was seen as that's how you're meant to suppress your emotions. Like men don't cry, men are meant to be powerful, whereas women were almost taught that like they should show their emotions. Yeah. Like there's nothing wrong if you cry as a female. 100%. There's nothing wrong if you get upset. Whereas with men, it's almost like when you cry, like I would cry and I would never tell that to someone. Yeah. And I'd feel so stupid after I cried. I was like, what was the point of that? Just wasted. And you did feel better after the cry, but for some reason, just with how society, consciously and subconsciously, just end up teaching us that as men you shouldn't do that. And I think a lot of it again is to do with how your men and women are also portrayed on social media, on TV, in movies, and just all walks of life without even noticing. You're taking in all this information, and even without you noticing, there's just so much there that teaches you that how you're supposed to act is that way. And I think as we've gotten older and we're just being exposed to more media, more information, I think it becomes a little bit more overwhelming. Yeah. And then people now think that if they talk about it, because before they were never taught how to explain themselves, how to say things out loud they're feeling. I think now that we're in a stage where that we're bombarded with so much pressure, so much information, so many people and things to compare ourselves to.
Yeah.
We don't really know how to
process it.
Yeah, how to process it, and even if we know there's something wrong, we're just so afraid to say it.
It's still that first moment of like vulnerability I think people have like an issue with, and I think it's like a muscle. Like when you go to the gym and you work on a muscle you've never worked on it before, it's always going to be tough and you're going to feel soreness the next day.
100%.
But it's like the more you do that, the more you have muscle memory and the easier it gets. And you know, a problem shared is a problem half. Yeah, that's the same. Problem shared is a problem half. And you know, over the last couple of years, whenever I have a problem now, I call one of my best mates, Dan, and I'm just straight away on the phone.
Just talk about
it. Just because it just helps massively and it just alleviates the pressure. I've shared that information with someone else, and I can also get a better, like an outside perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's so important for someone to do. Even if you don't think it's important, just call someone and share it with them, because you never know. Because if you let that fester away, it just adds another layer, and something else happens, and eventually it's just a domino effect, and like people end up crumbling. That's, you know, no, you like I've never known anyone who's committed suicide. I've never known anyone who has. I don't know if you have, but it's like, I reckon, though, if you met that person 6 months before, would you have thought he's going to commit suicide? Probably not. No. Maybe not. And I know people who have said that to me, like, I would have never thought that would have been him, because on the surface he looks good and he looks fine. Yeah. But underneath, when he goes home, he's a complete mess. And it's like, you know, if only someone would have just asked, like, are you okay? Like, how are you feeling? I think sometimes that question we ask someone, you know, how are you? It's always come back with, you know, I'm fine. You know, it's just like that automatic response. And I think not many people ever just go, you know what, I'm actually okay.
And I think a lot of it is also to do with just also accepting the way you're feeling. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people will know that they're suffering, will know that they're depressed, will know they're suffering from anxiety. Yeah. But they'll almost try to suppress it. It's almost as if they're feeling that way, but they think that there's something actually wrong with them, like they shouldn't be allowed to feel this way. So I think when people suppress, I think that's the problem. And obviously it's easier like said than done, but I think accepting that you're allowed to be upset, like it's the exact same way. The fact that you're allowed to feel happy, you're allowed to have a good life, you're allowed to smile, you're allowed to laugh. In turn, you're also allowed to be sad, you're also allowed to be upset. Things happen. The world isn't easy. There's so much going on in this world that you'd be very, very naive to think that you're not allowed to go through heartache, you're not allowed to feel upset. But I think the key is just just accepting the way you feel, and then try to do things that are gonna help somewhat fix the problem.
I also think by no means are we trying to compare it to someone who, let's say, has like depression or something like that. Like, by no, you know, like I said, we're not professionals. It's nothing like that. No one who's like bipolar. You know, that's the thing you would need to seek professional help for.
100%.
I think it's more when you're dealing with an issue, it's how you deal with that on like a micro level, or whatever I'm trying to say. So I think that's important to definitely note. But I know that when we started this episode, I think I think coming to it with an issue that we've been through is quite important, because it shows vulnerability, which is important for people to understand that, you know, every single person deals with this, and maybe to hear how like we dealt with it. Yeah. Because, you know, if other people can see other people dealt with it like that, maybe it's possible for them. And you know,
Yeah, and I think because I've people have always said to me growing up and stuff, because I've always been like this bubbly, outgoing, laughable. Yeah. Like always like trying to have a good time, even in school. Like, I would always try to make people laugh in class and stuff, and that was probably like the thing that got me in trouble the most. Yeah. So that people always see that to me as like the surface level of like, like he never doesn't take life seriously.
Is there a reason for that?
No, that was the thing, but there's always been more to me than what I showed. Like even my really close friends knew that. It's like, whenever you first meet, you think, you couldn't have a serious conversation with me, because I'm just always like smiling, laughing, having a good time. But really, there's always more below the surface. And just like growing up through life, you end up, there's certain things that happen when you're younger that also will have an effect on you growing 100%. Up. And you never, for me, I never really noticed it until I got older, and I think as you get older, for me anyway, self-reflection was a big thing. Yeah. Always like looking back and thinking, why did I ever feel that way, or how did I handle the situation? So, example, we're talking about our mental health, and this mental health episode, and one of the notes we made is just to give like an example or a couple of examples of like how
we've dealt with it.
Yeah, how we've dealt with it and the kind of situations that we've been in, what we did, what the situation was, if you're happy enough to share.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think. Do you want to go first?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest mental health issues I had back in the day, it's like, I've always been a very outgoing person, very easy to talk to. I think there's also like, I find that sometimes people who are like that's because they have dealt with quite a few issues maybe, and it's like, it's very surface level and everything's underneath. And one of the biggest things I went through is in first year of uni, so I was 19 when my dad passed away. And I put something on Instagram about him recently.
Yeah.
And I was 19, he died from cancer. I think he got told he had like 7 months to live, or like a year and a half to live, and he died in 7 months. And he was like my best mate. I've got like 3 tattoos dedicated to him. We'll probably end up getting some more. And that for me was awful. I remember I was at uni at the time, and being like 18, 19, you're at such, I think still such an impressionable age.
Yeah.
You know, the person I am now, would I have acted that way if it happened now? Probably not. I would have dealt with it very differently. But how I dealt with it at the time is when I found out I was smoking a lot of weed at the time, and I started drinking like heavily, getting absolutely hammered, blackout drunk. And not a lot of people here would know that version of me, but a lot of people back home would, who were around me at the time and who helped me and were on the phone to me. And I don't think initially I really wanted to speak to anyone about it. And I remember just binge drinking constantly. I was going on nights out, drinking just under like a litre of vodka for Capris, and blacking out, waking up in bed, not knowing how I got there, bruises all over me, texts on my phone, the fights I tried to start, almost got arrested, and I was doing that for maybe like the best part of a year. And it was awful. It was awful.
At the time, did you know all that you were doing was in reaction to that? So you knew that's why you were doing it?
Yeah, I consciously did it. Okay. I was like, I just want to completely go into self-destruct mode, and I didn't know what else to do. I was like, I don't really know how to talk about this. And at that age, being in uni, you're already going out, and I was like, cool, I'm just going to completely send it and just go absolutely mental. And every single night, I was just getting hammered as fuck, not thinking about the consequences, starting fights with my mates, their girlfriends, calling my mum, my dad when he was alive, crying down the phone every single night. I'd be on the floor outside clubs, lying on my back, almost passing out on the phone to him. And then after it did happen, it just got even worse.
How do you feel so you went out, got blacked out drunk, how do you feel like the next morning, besides obviously being like really hungover? Like what was your thought process? Like what did you do? Did you just lie there and just self-pity and then just wake up and do it again?
Yeah, pretty much. Just lie there, really hungover, feel like shit. The pain was still there. And then I think you're so hungover, I just lie in bed just thinking about it, and then just get drunk again. That evening, I wouldn't like day drink, but I'd just get drunk again and be like, cool, let's go out again tonight.
You obviously don't do that now. What was the point where you just decided that?
You know what? I'd have to probably ask one of my friends. I'd have to ask my mate Dan, because maybe he saw the transition, but I think it's like I kind of completed it. And I feel like it was, for me, it was like self-therapy.
Yeah.
And like to that, I did do a lot of like thinking and self-reflecting and stuff like that. Maybe I did speak to my friends, but I don't think I did. But I feel like I'd completed it. I felt like I'd got everything out of my system that I wanted to. I'd cried every night. I'd had all these deep chats and I was drunk about it. I just felt like I had nothing left.
Yeah.
You know? Like just nothing left at all. And I wouldn't recommend that to anyone, because I could have done some really stupid things. I could have ended up battered and sent to hospital by trying to start fights with people. B, I could have got run over by a car, being hammered. C, I could have died. Anything could have happened. So I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. But I think a really big thing that I had a chat with one of my friends a couple of months ago. His dad had passed away, and I basically sent him a message being like, you're going to have all these people reach out to you to tell you, you know, you should try this, you should do this. I'm like, whatever you are going to do, just do it.
Yeah.
And no one can tell you the right way to deal with it. But if you can speak to someone while you're doing what you're doing, it will just give them the heads up to keep an eye out on you.
Yeah, for sure.
Because no one's an expert on that situation. And anyone telling you, you know, don't do this, don't just, it's like, well, that's what I wanted to do at the time. And you telling me would just send me further down that line anyway. So it's a really hard thing to deal with. But I think the biggest thing that I would tell, you know, that was a really hard time that I went through, is eventually started speaking to my friends about it and opening up about it. And even that time would be like, you know, I did that and I was getting so hammered, and also I wasn't getting drunk anymore, but that residue feeling of feeling sad and depressed about it was still there.
Yeah.
Even though I was tired of getting drunk now, I was just there with that depressed feeling. And that's when I need to start speaking to people about it. And that's exactly what I did. I just sat down with my friends and I was just talking. And, you know, at the end of the day, it happens. Like, everyone's parents is going to die. You'd only hope that it would be due to, you know, old age.
Yeah,
when they're like 70 and you're like a bit older.
You said like something really, really good there. You said that you are going to deal with it the way you're going to deal with it, and you as a friend, if you go and tell them, I think it's important when you're dealing with situations like if you have a friend and they're in a situation like that for what you were going through.
Yeah.
For example, I think you as a friend looking at that, it's important for you to understand the type of friend you have.
Yeah.
In terms of how you're going to approach the situation, kind of help. Because some friends, if you give them that tough love, they're just going to push you away.
100%.
Whereas others, if you give them that tough love, there's going to be a chance that they're more likely to listen to that. Where there's others, you have to show more of a compassion and understand. It's like, okay, I don't agree with what you're doing. I can't even fathom how you're going through this situation.
Yeah.
But you're going to do what you're going to do. You're going to deal with it the way you're going to deal with it. But just know that I'm going to be here for you.
Yeah.
And I think there's a fine line between that tough love and showing that compassionate love.
Yeah.
And I think the key is really to just know that friend, because I have friends who go through stuff and there's certain ones where I would give the compassion, but then there's others I'd be like, man, nah. Like you're being a dickhead kind of thing, you know what I mean?
I think it's based on the situation and based on the context at the time.
Yeah.
I think it's a very delicate situation, and it's important that it's how close you are to that person.
Yeah, exactly. You got to in those type of situations, you got to like almost stay in your lane. You got to know where you stand and like how much you think they'll react to what you're saying, kind of thing.
I didn't even speak to my mum about it really. Yeah. I don't even speak to I didn't really speak to my mum about it at the time because I didn't want to add to her stress. So again, it was just like I just wanted to just take on my own. Yeah, it's interesting. I think grief brings out a lot of mixed emotions in people.
It does.
Definitely. But yeah, gladly say that today, I've spoken about the situation now with so many other people and people that I know that have been through it or are dealing with it. I always reach out to them if I know them, because this is a tangent, but when it happened to me, I had loads of random people who I hadn't spoken to in like 5 years reach out to me and like, hey, if you ever want to speak to me, I'm here. And I'd get really fucking pissed off.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you don't know me that well, and to reach out to me now because I'm dealing in shit, now you want to be there. And for some reason I took that as like some self-gratification thing. It's like to make you believe you're a good person. And it's like, you might be a good person, but you don't have to reach out to me to be my friend because I'm in shit.
Yeah.
My friends are there for me when I'm at my highest and at my lowest.
Yeah.
You're not a friend because you're there because I'm dealing with sadness. And I think that when I reached out to this guy, I was very open. I said, look, I don't expect you to reach out to me. I'm not saying I'm here for advice because you've got friends and family. You don't need me for that. This is what I went through. This is probably what you will go through.
Yeah.
If you want to write back to me, feel free. If not, I completely understand.
Yeah.
And I think that was how I wanted to go at it, because I know how I felt when I had people who hadn't known me for 5 years saying that to me. I was like, well, do you think we're going to become best friends off some grief
I get that
with?
My issue with that
that's just my opinion.
Yeah, my issue with that one is like, okay, maybe you haven't spoken with this person in 5 years.
Yeah.
But you used to be really good friends. You know what I mean? So if, for example,
no, I wasn't even good friends with them.
What were you friends in school? So were
just knew me,
just random people.
Just knew me.
Yeah. So like, for me, if I was to go through something like that, and I have friends that I was like hung out with 5 years ago that I don't really speak to, partly because I've moved so far away and we just don't really communicate.
Yeah.
But if something like that happened to me, like, if they reached out, I'd really appreciate it. Not that I expect them to constantly be, I don't know, messaging me or giving me advice, but it's like we had a relationship at one stage.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's almost to say.
I think maybe I was just bitter at the time.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, because if you've had some sort of relationship with someone, and maybe at some stage they may have thought that you were friends at the time. Maybe they thought that your relationship was somewhat amicable, and you would talk the odd time. I feel that them reaching out is just saying, hey, I know we haven't spoken, but we used to have conversations. We may not have been best friends, may not have been friends, but I used to walk past you in the hallway in school and we'd have a chat, this and that.
Yeah.
Just letting you know.
But I think that's a fair point.
There's a good chance that you're just in a stage where where obviously you're grieving and that was just your initial reaction to that?
I wouldn't see it the same way. I don't think about it the same way now, but like in the mindset I was then, I took it as like very.
And I think you're allowed to feel like that.
Yeah, I was just very bitter about getting messages like that off people that I wasn't even friends with.
Going through a trauma like that, I don't feel like you need to even justify some of your reactions. You're allowed to do that.
I probably did take it as like quite bitterness at the time, but now looking back at the situation, I can understand where you're coming from. I think it's a good point that maybe people just want to reach out to be a good person, and it doesn't have to be some kind of.
Because I'm sure you probably have friends that have gone through or will go through stuff that you may not have spoken to in 4 or 5 years. Like you said, that guy that you messaged, and you messaged him even though you don't speak to him, so you've had the same thought that those people may have had, like, I haven't spoken to Dan in ages, his dad just died, you know what I mean? Like, I should just say that, you know, I'm thinking about you. Yeah. And that's it. Move on. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So I guess the main takeaway from what I dealt with at the time is that whatever you're going to, a situation like that, I think whatever you're going to do, but just share it with someone. And I think, how you deal with that kind of issue is, how I dealt with it is just speak to someone around you. Yeah. Even if it's just one person, just have like one go-to person.
Of course.
Because it could stop you doing something really stupid. And, for me, I don't think it was ever going to be anything more than that. Mm. But for someone else, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been like a drug overdose. It could have been something a lot worse. So I think a really important thing is just speak to even just one person. Have like one talking buddy who's just every day. You just at least tell them what you're going through. So that's what I recommend.
Now, since you've mentioned the talking buddy thing, so mine, in terms of how I've dealt with mental health kind of thing, and at the time I was young, so, and again, as we said before, just when you're younger, mental health and being mentally aware is just not something that you were taught. So at the time, when I was going through all this sort of stuff, like, it was never thought, but mine is also to do with my dad. So I've never had a father figure in my life growing up. My mum and my dad were married, they had me, but then they got a divorce.
Have you ever met him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I went like really young, so to the point where I can't really remember very much. I have certain little flashbacks of back then, but in terms of overall remembering, not very much. Yeah. But then we had a father figure and stuff. They got divorced. My dad moved to Barbados, and then I lived in Jamaica for a little bit longer, and then we moved all the way across to Ireland. And just growing up without one at the time, didn't really think very much of it.
Because it's something you're quite used to?
Yeah, it's something you're quite used to. Yeah, you're just quite used to it. And I guess as a kid, you kind of just, whatever you've been dealt, you just see it as normality until you start to get to a certain age of maybe your teenage years. And for me, it was probably around my teenage years when I got to about 15, 16, whatever. And I had a friend, Jenna, who would always ask me about him, like, oh, do you know your dad or whatever? It's like, I know him when I was younger, but I don't know the guy at all. And she's my best friend that would always challenge me in my thoughts, always ask me how I was kind of thing, and always would push me to talk about it kind of thing. Yeah. Knowing that I would probably want to, but knowing that I didn't want to, if that made sense. Yeah. Because naturally for me, I'm not you probably noticed I'm not an open book. You need to get a crowbar to get anything.
It's taking quite a while to pick away at the smallest things.
So even me just saying stuff like this is I'm sweating just having to open up about stuff like this. But yeah, I think whenever with her, she was so adamant that I talk about it, and the way I can explain it is, if you think about when you follow someone on Instagram, and you see their content once, you're not going to really follow them. It's not until you see it constantly that you're going to finally give them okay, I'll give you a follow. I like what you're posting. And I think with her, it was almost like that, but on an emotional standpoint, and just her knowing, because we'd been friends for years before I started talking about that sort of stuff. Yeah. And she would always ask, and then always ask very open questions. And after a while, I just started to open up, and I feel like my relationship, or my lack of relationship with my father, had such a massive knock-on effect on how my relationships in life were, both with actual friends and both within relationships.
How do you think it affected your?
I think it's just the fact that, one, I was a closed book, and I tried to just do everything myself. Like, it kills me having to ask people for help.
I appreciate that.
And then also my stubbornness as well. Like, just if I was in a situation, the last thing I want to do is ask for help. I would rather, unless I'm desperately need it. And I think that was a knock-on effect of that kind of experience, not having a father on, just not being able to trust people.
Having to grow up as well. Quite quickly, I'm guessing, with those kind of situations.
Yeah, my mum's always been great. My mum literally was more than enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And at the time when I was growing up, I didn't really think that situation that I was dealt was even really affecting me. But when I spoke with Jen, I realized that it actually was. And even now that I look back, I'm like, all these people that I had in my life, all these girls that I dated or had like an intimate relationship, I just could never commit. No matter how much I knew that they were good for me, I would always have an excuse, or I'd always be that immature one that would like almost act out in a way that would force them to push themselves off me, kind of thing, as like a coping mechanism. And I think it was back then I didn't realize this until like now. Now that I'm older, now I'm self-reflecting, now that the relationships that I'm in now or that I've been in now, I look back and think, oh, there's some similarities between how I'm feeling now and it was then. I think the thing when it comes to my mental health at the stage is that I didn't really know that I was going through it, which is kind of scary to think of. Like, I was going through that, but I almost accepted it as that's how I'm supposed to feel. I'm supposed to feel this abandonment. Like, my dad's not here, and I'm upset about it. And I think one of the biggest times. So there's been a couple of times as I was growing up, I as a kid tried to get in touch with him, emailed, tried to call, stuff like that, and we would email back and forth for a while. But the thing is, he would take like weeks to respond. Weeks, so like I would respond, and then he would take weeks to respond, and then I'm just like, what is going on? Like, dude, I don't even know if you have another kid, but I'm the child in the situation. I'm the one like making like all the effort. Like, how is this even a thing?
When you were, how old were you when you were like sending those messages?
These emails would have been around 15, 16.
Nice.
So like I was at a stage where I'm growing up, I'm maturing, and I'm going through a stage where there's a lot of learning being done, and I'm like trying to somewhat rejuvenate a relationship with my
father. Especially at that age as well.
Yeah,
like, there's so much going on as a 16-year-old.
And it's just like after a while, I'm like, you know what? How am I the child, and I'm the one trying to like fix this relationship with my father? And the final straw was literally, I was 15, and it was the week before I was 15. It was a week before my 16th birthday. And I was on the phone to my dad. I think either my mum called him or I called him or something. And he's like, oh yeah, it's your 16th birthday next year, 12th September. I was like, yeah. And he's like, I'm going to call you on your 16th birthday.
Yeah.
And then 16th birthday came around. I had no phone call. You know that moment actually reminded me of that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air scene. You remember whenever?
Don't bring up that scene. That scene's so emotional.
Him with like Uncle Phil, where his dad's come back in his life, and then they're about to go and hang out, and his dad was just like, "Oh, can you tell Will that I'm sorry I can't make it?" And Uncle Phil was like, "No, you're gonna tell him. You're gonna tell him this." And then Will like just stumbled, walks in the room, he's like, "Yo, Daddy, where are we going?" And then his dad just really awkward, and he's just like, "Yo, Will, like I'm sorry, but this thing's come up with work, but I'm gonna call you next week." And then Will was just like...
And that scene happened where he was like... Phil hugged him and stuff.
And then Phil hugged him in the end because, like, obviously I don't think Will Smith, the real life Will Smith, didn't have a relationship with his dad either.
Yeah, that scene was natural.
Scene was just all, like, natural, where he's just like, he doesn't need him, he's gonna learn to drive, he's gonna find him a hot wife, he's gonna get married. And that scene was, like, when he said, like, he's gonna be a great father to his kids because there's nothing that his dad can teach him how to raise a kid. And that's the way I look at it now. It's like, I've never had a father figure in my life, but I know what not to do. You know what I mean?
Fuck, man. That's heavy. That is like, I think that's an incredible thing that, like, because obviously that was a turning point. And especially if, like, I'm watching an episode like that has, like, that kind of effect on you as well.
I love that scene.
I think stuff like that really helps people, because if you can resonate to the situation, it helps you slightly. So, fuck, man, Oh yeah, you never told me this before in that much detail.
No.
That's I can only imagine what that's like. And I can like, did you ever get bullied on because of that in school? Like not having a dad? Were kids ever like me? Because I know kids are like fucking cunts sometimes.
No, I never really did. I never got bullied about anything in school. Just lucky. But as I said, I never on the surface let it affect me in any sort of way. Like you'd never look at me and think. That was the thing. My mum probably doesn't even know half this. So hello, mum.
Big up, Miss Dwayne. Yeah. I've heard some great things about you.
Big up Miss Clover Watts. But yeah, as I said at the start of me just talking about this, like my mum's been always more than enough. Like she's been a rock. She's always been there. But she's always tried to get me to talk. But you know, as a teenage boy growing up in the house with just your mum, like you're always going to be just a little bit more reserved in terms of like talking about your feelings. And again, it goes back to what we said before. Like growing up, you weren't really taught much about mental health. Like the fact that me going through that, I never thought it was like a mental health issue. I just thought it was just a life issue. Like this is just what it is, and that's how I realized that I just wasn't able to handle it, or I wasn't handling it in the right way, and acting out in other sort of ways to kind of combat that.
What's some stuff, I know you mentioned that obviously it left you quite closed and shut off and stubborn. What's some stuff that you have done recently, I guess, to work on stuff like that? What do you do actively?
I think,
apart from having quite stubborn friends,
I think the way I try to live a lifestyle that I enjoy. I try to manifest the lifestyle that I want. I think stuff like just exercising has been so good. Just a time where I can go to the gym and almost cut away from the world. Because in the life that we live now, social media is just so prominent. We work full time. The only really alone time you get is before you go to bed, in the shower, and then pretty much in the gym, because you have your headphones in, you can zone out. Going for jogs has always been a good one. I think just the health and fitness thing is just a major point, and then just going for walks with him on my own, going down to the beach, laying in the sand. I think just small little intricate things have helped me to kind of keep a very, very positive mind frame and good space in my head. What about you? What kind of things do you do?
Confide in people. Like outside of going to the gym, which I don't know if I do that for my mental health. Maybe if I didn't do it. But when I don't do it, I feel shit.
Based on what I know about you, like you enjoy the gym, so I think it definitely helps. Because if you don't go, you're kind of like,
I feel quite shit.
I haven't been in a while.
So I was saying this before. I was like, I don't currently suffer with any like mental health issues. I have dealt with issues in the past, and you know, even quite recently going through a breakup, having like massive like anxiety, panic attacks. But I think it's not I don't deal with it at the moment. It's like I was saying, I do things to protect my mental health. That's why it seems like I don't deal with things, and those things are going to the gym, even stuff like this, like having a platform to just like speak about stuff quite openly and honestly, and just, you know, it's quite therapeutic. Having friends to just like talk to just be like, you know, look, I'm just dealing with a bit of shit at the moment, just really interested in your opinion. I think I do that quite a lot. I think those would be like my three biggest things. And you know, we put up a post yesterday about what other people do to deal with stuff like that. I had some like great responses. Some people see like a psychologist. One of my friends goes to jiu-jitsu. If he's listening to this, big up. He's got his blue belt. And some people like go on walks, meditate.
Touched your hand?
Oh no, you didn't touch my hand.
I was not.
No, you didn't touch my hand. Meditating, going on walks. I think hearing stuff like that, which is why I wanted to like ask people, is just to see like someone said playing football, even like taking yourself out of certain situations that cause those problems. It's like you can't expect your environment to change for you, so you have to change your environment. I think that's what so many people. I feel like the mic is scratching against something. Does it seem okay where it is?
I'm fine.
Okay. I just wanted to like come out muffled. I think
just pull your shirt down a bit. Yeah.
I think so many people expect their environment to change for them. Would it be the necklace?
Yeah, might be that.
I hope it hasn't ruined the.
No, it should be alright.
It should be. Oh fuck! After the whole thing is like, oh god. Yeah, you can't expect your environment to change for you. You have to change for your environment. I think so many people expect for things to just happen and for their environment to change, for their job to get better, for their relationship to get better, for their friendship to get better, for all these situations. Like, you have to make the change. You have to do something about it. And I think, I used to do that myself. I used to, wait for things around me to change before making a leap. And it's like, no, if I need to see a change, I have to do it. And I've walked away from relationships. I've walked away from certain situations. I've walked away from certain friendships that I had to do because they were never going to do it themselves. And I was only damaging my mental health and my headspace by continuing that situation. And I like that point that person said about that is, learning when to walk away from certain situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on, sorry.
A few people messaged me, and I think one really interesting one.
Joseph, will you stop showering, you bastard?
One of the most interesting ones that we got was cognitive behavioral therapy.
Sorry, what is that?
Cognitive behavioral
I've heard
therapy.
that before. Yeah.
So I've heard it before, but I pretty much just Googled it just so I could get the actual definition. So cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is a form of psychological treatment that has been demonstrated to be effective for a range of problems, including depression, anxiety, alcohol, and drug use. And I think what pretty much this therapy is like, it's basically accepting the thought process and actively trying to fix it. So it could be a way of thinking, it could be just an unhelpful behavior that you do that seems quite normal to you. But then now that you know it's there, you're doing it, but you're not actively trying to like almost fix that problem, understanding the problem and just what's the term? Having the motivation to almost fix it. And I thought it was quite interesting because that's like something I would do. Like, if I know I'm going through a stage where I'm feeling a little bit upset or downhearted, I kind of become aware of it and then try to actively fix it. So I try to understand where it's come from, why I feel like this.
Yeah, I think it's really important.
And then from there, I then do what I can to then fix that problem. I'm hard to like think of an example right now, but it's definitely something that happens all the time. Especially like, for example, if you've like gone through a breakup and you're like, it's been months down the line and you've been so good for these few months, and then all of a sudden you're starting to feel down. It's like why do I feel down? Why do I feel
Can you
down?
shout any louder, mate?
Why do I feel down? And it's kind of like, maybe I just didn't really deal with the situation back when it was just a thing. Maybe all the partying that I was doing, all the dates that I was going on, maybe I was just using that to mask it. And on the surface, I looked like I was having a great time. But now that I'm chilling here 5 or 6 months down the line, maybe that was just a facade.
Human beings always take the path of least resistance.
Of course.
So the easier decision is to cover it up with multiple nights out, multiple dates, or whatever it is, your catalyst to deal with the situation. I think human beings naturally always do that. I know that when I had initially gone through a breakup, I started having, my mum's quite an anxious person.
Is she what, sorry?
My mum's quite an anxious person. And she's quite an anxious person. I hope you don't mind me saying that, Mum. Everyone who knows you would say it's true. I love you though. And I think some of that sometimes rubbed off on me. And I know that when I went through a breakup, I started having like real big panic attacks.
Yeah.
And I'd be on the phone to my friend, and I would know that I'm having one. I know that, and I don't naturally have panic attacks. I used to be quite an anxious person, or have like anxiety. I used to get very anxious about situations, but now I'm quite chill. I think about it more. I take my time. I take a breather. But when this situation happened, I was just straight away panic mode. Yeah. When one tiny thing went wrong, it would like compound, and I would start, be like, cool. What if I lose my job? I get shit at it. I lose my house. I lose my flat. I can't pay rent. All this. I'm gonna have to. And from the tiniest thing, I went from that to being booted out of the country. I don't even know how I got from there to there.
Yeah.
And so what I did at the time was, again, I'd call my mate and I'd be like, look, I know I'm just like panicking, I'm overthinking here, but can you just like walk me through what I'm thinking about? And my mate Dan, big up, he would Lever.
Lever.
Yeah, he would just be like, he would walk me through what I'm going through and be like, I completely appreciate obviously how you feel, and it does make sense you having this feeling, but let's break this situation down.
Yeah.
This doesn't lead to that doesn't lead to that doesn't lead to that. It's just fear.
You're almost like creating scenarios in your
just
head.
just creating fake scenarios that weren't even real. I'm like, I've just gone through this breakup. Because of that, I'm sad. Because I'm sad, I can't focus. If I can't focus, I can't do my job. If I can't do my job, I'm going to get fired. If I get fired, I'm going to eat through my savings. If I eat through my savings, I can't pay rent. If I can't pay rent, I'm going to be homeless. If I go homeless, I've got to go home. I got from that because I was
You've
sad.
literally gone from that all the way to being homeless.
Home. And I was just like, it was a horrible feeling, and it like my arsehole was just tight the whole time. I just couldn't breathe properly. And it's just a shitty feeling. How do we get to this again? We were saying that, times that I have felt like that. Yeah, so I think that's how I try and deal with it. Again, it's just looping back to just talking. I think talking to someone is so helpful. Whatever your catalyst is, if it's going to the gym, go to the gym. If it's going on a walk, go on a walk. Seeing a psychiatrist, a therapist. Yeah. But for me, it would definitely be talking to people. I'm quite a communicative person now, more than I was back in the day. I think I used to, going through a multitude of things when I was younger, not just to do with my dad, it made me grow up very quickly. Yeah. And because of that, I just took everything on my own shoulders. Not only that, I would also try and take on all my friends' problems as well. I think there's like an issue, and I've read up about this. It's like people who've gone through serious trauma have like an addiction to helping people through their stuff.
It almost like negates your issues as well.
Yeah, massively.
Like, I'm gonna help you out. Yeah. So then I don't need to talk about my stuff.
I've only recently stopped doing that in the past year. I realised that it wasn't helping me anymore, and I would get such a joy out of it. Someone would tell me an issue, like, cool, be on the phone to them back home, be like, I need to fix everything about this situation because it would make me feel better about my life. And only recently, I don't do that to everyone now. It's only selective people. I don't do that just with...
It takes a lot of energy.
It does. It really is quite draining. Especially, it is very draining. And that's what I use. And I realised after I sit there and think about it, like at times, you self-reflect, and it was like, this is why I'm doing it, because of these issues, because I've had to do this on my own, I've had to grow up quite quickly, so I'm just covering up with, bollocks that I'm trying to deal with outside of my own shit. So now I don't do that as much anymore, and I feel better for it. Not that I'm not there for my friends, but I am, but I'm not just going to try to fix everyone's problems anymore.
Yeah, for sure, because I've got to protect my own. As you said, you have your own issues that you need to deal with, and it's great, like, trying to help out as many people as you can, but it comes to a stage where it can be detrimental to you and your mental health. If you're trying to fix so many people's problems, you're having all this pressure on your shoulders that you've probably given yourself, because then you're trying to like ignore your own issues. Yeah. But then that's going to build up. It's like whenever you, for example, this podcast, we're trying to give 100% to it, but if you have all these different things that you're focusing your energy on, how is it going to be successful? Yeah. It's possible to focus your energy on loads of different avenues, but I think it's also important to know your limits. And I think, for example, your mental health issue, and you don't now decide that you're going to designate your time and energy into your own mental health. But then if you have certain friends that you're willing to give like all of yourself to if they ever need help. But if you're not deciding out of like guilt that you're going to do it to, like, I don't know how many friends you do now, but it's like, if you decide that you're going to start doing more, it's going to be so daunting and so much pressure on you as a person. And same with me, because when I was growing up, I used to like enjoy when people would open up to me and feel like they could, because it made me feel like I'm important. Yeah, important, but someone that they could also trust. Because I used to say I'm the best secret keeper in the world, because people would just tell me stuff and I would never repeat it, almost to the point where I'd put it to the back of my head and I wouldn't remember it until they like brought it up to me again. And always try, even to this day, I always try to give advice as well as I could. But I think when I'm looking back on now, literally just thinking here, it's like that could have just been me almost trying to just suppress my own feelings by concentrating on everyone else's.
Yeah, I think as well, I quite enjoyed being everyone's go-to. Like the advice giver, the person they confide in, and to some level, I do quite like it, because I like being there for my mates. But I think
good for the ego somewhat as well.
It is as well. I think back then it was a lot more important to me then than it is now. Yeah. Back then it was like self-validation. Through everything I was going through and everything I had been through, it made me feel that I was still okay. Yeah. And the fact that people were coming to me meant that I'd got through what I was dealing with. So I think it helps, validate your own concerns or issues.
I agree.
I kind of don't know what we've done here. We've gone a bit of a...
That was a big old tangent. Good tangent though.
Yeah,
I'm sweating.
I know, I'm sweating as well. Behind the back of my knees.
Yeah, so we kind of touched on like how people, what things we do and how people can do to like help themselves like battle these sort of issues. And I think with men, I think redefining what it means to be a man is important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think, as you said earlier, it's really easy just to suppress those feelings, and yeah, you can do it for a while. And I think with society as well, because we've been taught like being a man is about, as you said earlier, just being powerful and being
toughen up, man.
Toughen up kind of thing. I think it's important. I think it's going to be a societal change. We're going to have to change the way we think, before like real change can happen. And real change takes like years. Like it's not going to change after a decade. It's not going to change after.
But we can make those changes like day by day.
It starts with the small things though, as you said in the last podcast, those little 1%ers.
1%ers. You get 1% better every day, 365% better at the end of the year.
Look at that.
Right. Wow.
365% is a lot.
Mind blowing.
To be to get better by. So I think that is definitely the key, those little 1%ers, to get better. And I think to almost like wrap up the podcast, I think it's good that we kind of just let people know there's services in Australia, because I think a lot of our listeners are...
How long have we been doing this for now? How long has this podcast been?
58 minutes.
With 58 minutes?
We'll have to cut out you peeing though.
Oh, why? That's a really great scene.
No, it's not. So
I've got a healthy bladder.
I think, so I've done like a bit of research. So I found Beyond Blue, Lifeline, which is 24/7, Men's Line, which is 24/7, and Suicide Callback Service, which are a few of the different phone lines and available services you have if you're ever going through anything. And obviously, if any of my friends ever need to speak, like I'm literally a phone call away, or you know where I live as well.
Same, if any of my friends need to speak, just don't. No, I'm joking. If any of my friends, obviously everyone knows, if everyone ever wants to speak about something, you know, always reach out. I think it is really important just to say, it's like we need to start having more of these conversations.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that if anyone's dealing with something, you know, a few of our friends and a few of my friends have had situations recently, and I'm like, just speak about it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think it's important, just have a chat.
I think the key is to just feel comfortable talking about it. You shouldn't feel uncomfortable.
Just vent.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Just have a bit of a vent and just talk. And I think it makes you. I think friendships are built on like vulnerability, banter, and just like, you know, I think those are the main things they're built on.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's the moment you start showing vulnerability, and sometimes it takes you to go first to do that, and that's what I usually try and do. That's why I think I've got really good friendships. I usually open up about myself first, and what I found in the past is that then makes people feel comfortable to open up to me.
Yeah.
And I don't mind doing that, because I'm more than happy to talk about, you know, certain situations. He's so excited. Just calm. Just will you chill out? He's just jealous. You've said your line earlier, mate. You sneezed. That's all we're giving you. But I think, I think it is important. Just speak to your mates and do something. Don't just sit there with it and expect the situation to change for you, because it will never happen. Your environment will not change for you. You have to change for your environment. You have to actively protect your mental health for something to happen. Whatever that is, stop boozing, stop smoking, walk more, exercise more, work on, you know, whatever it is, just do something on it, or speak to someone about it before it gets worse. No one ever realised someone was going to commit suicide before they did commit suicide. You know, no one realised it when they had their first shitty feeling that was going to compound over time. You know.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Is there anything else we wanted to listen
to this far?
Is that what we're done?
I think we're pretty much wrapped up.
I think we're done. Well, guys, just to end this off, I just want to say thank you when you have listened to the whole thing, because obviously you definitely will. Thanks for listening to the second episode of Subject to Change. Really excited again to get your feedback. And we've got some exciting episodes to come. We're going to be bringing some really, really cool guests on.
Yes,
it's going to be good. It's going to be good. And obviously, we'd love to have a laugh and we love to shoot the shit. But this is something that we thought was really important to us. We wanted to speak about, because
as our slogan says, talking about the things that matter and the things that don't. And I think this is one of the things that does matter.
100%.
And that's why we've done it. But thank you very much for listening. As always, please follow us on all our social media channels, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube. If you listen on Spotify, follow us there. If you listen on Apple, please give us a review. Or on SoundCloud, please give us a like.
5-star if you can as well. If you think it's good.
Legend. So thank you very much, everyone. And peace.